Hello and welcome to the ThreeWill podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, speaking. I have Tommy Ryan here with me. How's it going, Tommy?
Going well.
Good. I can spot your socks from here. Nice. Some polka dots.
I did it just for you, Danny.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. First you think I'm just wearing black socks, but then you work your way up a little bit, and it gets a little nutsy. Nice. Gets a little crazy. Some different colors. I'm so used to wearing traditional colors. I'm wearing a little bit of fluorescence, which is not like me, but hey, got to kick it up a notch every once in a while.
Yeah, but you're being a little safe there with that much black. I can see it.
So today let's talk about Slack versus Teams. It seemed like for a while there that...
Squirrel!
Yes, let's try to find the nut. It seemed like for a while there that Microsoft was just going to... I guess they were trying to buy Slack.
Right.
It seemed like they were trying to go after them, and then I guess that fell through, and then probably Satya said, well, we have this thing called Skype, and it has a lot of the things that are similar, and then we have this thing called Yammer, and oh my gosh, yes, this is the latest thing to come out, and I just wanted to talk to you about maybe some things at a high level for someone who's looking at this initially. You know, comparing the two, what are the similarities, what are the differences, and again, just trying to keep it high level. Maybe later on we can dive further into it, especially since this is a new product, we can get into some more details. But just hit me at a high level. What is Teams? I mean, we talked a little bit about what Teams, comparing it to Slack. What is it the same thing that we're trying to do with Teams?
So Slack, a lot of people, unless you're a tech type person, you're probably not too familiar with Slack. But it is starting to enter into the general business world where people look at it as a real-time communication tool. It's very similar to IM. So if you're used to using something like Skype or using some instant messenger, even in your personal world, say Facebook Messenger, it's the ability to go back and forth, similar to a SMS texting. And it's more in a group or team fashion that you can have these messages and tag them in a way that people know what is the topic of the conversation and can join that conversation.
Great, good. And so we're kicking the tires internally with this. You first created a group just to get some folks up and running, and the teams have come out recently, like it was within the last couple of weeks. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And then for Slack's been out for years. How long has Slack been around for?
I did not do my research.
Okay.
I would say Slack has been out there for, I'd say, probably around 2 years.
Okay.
Somewhere there, plus or minus a year.
Yeah. And nice. And so what is this put into place to be something that complements Slack, or is this a replacement for it, or any sort of ideas on that?
Well, this is where you start saying high level, Tommy.
High level, Tommy. At a high level. I thought you were making fun of me at first. It's like you were saying high level way too many times.
So, no. I think it's interesting how you can see the history of how this arrives and how I think Microsoft over and over is trying to make their services more consumable and giving you more options, it has its pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
But you have Yammer as that social platform, and Yammer is, more like a bulletin board. So I think people ended up running over to Slack because they wanted more of that real-time collaboration experience in an activity stream and be able to have that water cooler conversation that people can participate in and kind of go and catch up and look at the history and, join in a conversation, a team-based conversation. And Yammer really does not serve that well. It's more like a bulletin board. So I think they looked at Teams as a response to, we thought we had social with Yammer, but there's this desire for people to do things like Slack, and it seems like we're not filling that need. And so we heard this with Skype for Teams, where Teams originally came, I think, anticipated as a new product called Skype for Teams, but I think they moved it in a direction of the Office 365 Groups track, which is, I want to have consumable parts of Office 365. I want to have a calendar, I want to have conversations, I want to have files, and I want to have notes. And let's be able to bring all that knowledge and information into a conversation. And that's where the Slack part comes in, is on Office, on Microsoft Teams, they have a conversations piece. That's one piece of many things, but it is that kind of competition to Slack, where you can have the context of a group of people, and you can have a stream of conversation that feels like you're texting in a group text setting.
And so at a high level, you have what, I guess, term-wise, and I'm going to plead the fifth here with not knowing exactly what all the terms are, but I know with Microsoft Teams, I guess you group people around a team, and then the equivalent in Slack would be what?
That's where it's a little bit different.
Okay.
When you look at inside of Slack, they have channels, and you use it's a hashtag and the name of the channel, and people can go into a channel and have conversations, include channels with using the hashtag for the channel, and that allows you to hop around at a high level, a very flat kind of tag structure, to kind of filter into conversations that matter to you. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at the equivalent over in Microsoft Teams, is they first start with a security context, called a team. And that provisions out an area for conversations, an area for files and notes, and an area for calendars. And then within the team, you can segment that information by using, they call it channels. So, which, over in Yammer, it's called topics. So, it can be a little bit confusing, of course, but at the end of the day, what Microsoft is saying is, when you start having conversations, and I can see why this makes sense, in a very large organization, do you really want everybody to be able to get to everything? Or do you want to go ahead and say, initially, this is who should be in this conversation, and then within the conversation, I have kind of subtopics, or in the world of Microsoft Teams, channels that I want to be able to focus the conversation. So it is more enterprise thinky, where it's saying, let's secure things, to start with a security context versus making it open to the world. And then let's give people the ability to segment that information through what they call a channel.
And then within Teams, you have this concept called bots, right? It looked like this T-bot is one that you can ask questions and sort of like as a help bot. And I'm sure they're going to add a way of adding on other bots that are in there. Microsoft will make their own. There'll be other third-party bots. Is there an equivalent over in Slack at all?
Yes. Okay. In Slack, I don't know if you remember when you first joined Slack, a bot was working with you to get you to set up your profile.
Okay.
And it's really to try to take you through some scripted things, to have an assistant in there to use the chat to get information. I mean, it's, in some senses like Amazon Echo. Mm-hmm. You can ask a question and it comes back, and if it, understands your terminology and what you're asking for, it will reply back to you. I mean, you've got bots out in the world of Twitter. So it's a way, it's almost like a person, but an automated person that takes part in the conversation and can help.
And within Teams, you have connectors as well, where if you want to add some, like I added to the marketing one, I added something for our website, so it'll update in the team if it ever goes down. Is it also called connectors inside of Slack, or does it have some other name?
There are integrations.
Integrations. Okay.
Yeah, and there maybe there's a term there within Slack. I can't remember.
Okay. But they have something that's similar to that, because I know it pretty much works with everything, right?
Yeah, and Slack, of course, is ahead of Microsoft in the number of integrations, but I'm assuming that gap will be bridged pretty quickly.
Yep. So for the time being, it looks like this will be a similar situation to us using like Dropbox, where we continued to use sort of the third-party service for a while, tried out OneDrive for a while, and then slowly started moving things into OneDrive, right? This is probably something similar. We're using Slack. It's working out well. We might find some scenarios that it works out well for us to use Teams, but just sort of take it one step at a time, right?
Yeah, and ideally we can bring it into Teams if the conversations in Teams is good enough. I think what's going to be tough is I don't think Teams is going to be as elegant and simple as Slack. And Slack has a lot of polish to it, very clean, simple UI. It's trying to accomplish something and do it very well and be very focused around that conversation piece. Teams is a lot more than that. The conversation piece is, say a tenth of what that is trying to do, and you could say less than a tenth. Mm-hmm. So, with that being not the main focus, but just one of the things that it has, it's not going to be as simple, and it's going to be a little bit more cluttered with other things you can do inside of Teams. So, hopefully that they make it good. It looks good. And maybe it is good enough. We're still kicking the tires.
Yeah.
But you can tell they put a very good first foot forward with it in terms of it doesn't look like just an idea that they're throwing against the wall. It looks like it's something that they've been maturing internally a little bit longer than normal, and getting it out there and giving it a good running head start.
Nice. Yeah, you were right. It was called, I guess in Slack they call it integrations and apps. I just took a quick look, opened it up and looked at it. So you're right. It was integrations. And it seems like they've got a bunch of different categories. If I go look at our Slack, everything from bots to different departmental apps and things like that.
Right.
So
I love what Microsoft's doing with, cloud-based integrations. Inside of Teams is not the first place you see that. You saw it in Office 365 groups that had connections, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. And then you see it within things like Flow, where they're going with workflow, but not being workflow just for SharePoint, but workflow across the mainstream services that you would want to have a business process to flow back and forth.
Just so I can explode my brain and pick up the bits off the floor, can you add a connector for Slack? I'm assuming you can. Can you add a connector? No, it doesn't look like you can. I
don't know if they'll do that.
Because that would, I don't know what that would do to me.
It's very meta.
Yeah.
Is that what they say?
Yes,
the kids say? Is that very meta?
The kids say. I was looking through here real quick just to see if you could add a connector for Slack. I don't even know what that means, but okay, I'm going to leave that one alone. Let's end on a positive note.
Well, think about it. If you had some team members that are in Slack, and there's a conversation going on there, and they had certain integration with how they get things done that is unique to Slack. And then you have the greater team that's working with files and calendars, and they have a conversation channel there that they could feed in the Slack channel to, throw in their conversations to join in the greater conversation. So, I saw you integrate Twitter. So you have Twitter coming into your marketing feed for conversations. You could have a Slack feed from a team that's maybe doing marketing related activities in Slack.
Yep. Cool. Anything else? I'm not going to say the word. I didn't say it. I held it off. Look at the control. Anything else you would like to add to this conversation as far as someone looking at Slack versus Microsoft Teams?
So Slack versus Teams, I think at a high level, Slack is very focused and simple and does a great job at team collaboration. And then Microsoft Teams is embracing that and going further to be able to take that conversation and act on content that's enterprise content. So things that are stored in SharePoint and secured properly and have retention policies and all that good enterprisey stuff. I think in the Slack world, all that content outside of the conversation, you have to get concerned with in terms of, do I need to retain that? What do I do with all the information? There's not as many controls in place that you would see with Office 365. But if you don't care about the images that are attached to a Slack conversation and just the miscellaneous things that come up, then it's not a big deal. Then let's, Slack, you might have teams that say it's the way we feel productive, and then maybe there's an integration between Slack and Teams where you can have that feed back into your team's conversation.
Great. Great. Thank you, Tommy, for taking the time to do this. And
sure.
We're interested to hear what's your experience. We're sort of sharing some of our raw notes with you as far as a new product that's coming out. So if you're listening to this on the ThreeWill site, definitely leave a comment. We'd love to hear your experiences so far.
Please
do. Interaction is good. We love it. We'll respond back to questions as well. So if you have any questions that we could possibly answer, or anyone else at ThreeWill can answer, please leave a comment. And that's it for today. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.